The go signal. All right, we'll call the meeting to order at 6:02 PM. First item on the agenda is roll call.
Nyla Fry,
Here.
Trisha Brown,
Here.
Sam Kaufman,
Here.
Kristen Runge,
Here.
Aaron Moran,
Here.
Joseph Sperger,
Here.
Robert McPherson.
All right, second item on the agenda is confirmation of open meeting compliance.
I can confirm that the draft agenda was published in the Waunakee Tribune on 4/5. The final agenda was posted in all three official posting locations on 4/2. And the final agenda and packet were made available online on 4/2. For those in the audience, just please be sure you sign in with your name, address, and municipality for accurate record keeping. And anybody interested in public comment, please provide that form prior to that agenda item.
All right, next is public comment. Do we have any forms for
I
public
have no
comment?
forms.
We have no forms. All right, do we have anyone online who would like to make a public comment? If you would like to make a public comment and you're online, please raise your hand and we'll bring you into the meeting.
There are a couple of people online, but I do not see a hand raised at this time.
All right, last call for public comment. Seeing none, let's move to the consent agenda. Do we have anything we'd like to pull from the consent agenda? If not, do we have a motion to approve?
Second.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And next up, we have reports and announcements. First one is WaunaBoom Committee. I was not present for the WaunaBoom Committee. I was out of town for work, but they did meet with fire, police, and EMS as there is their tradition this many months before the event, and worked out the details of safety. And we are also progressing very nicely on fundraising and getting close to our goal. Next up, Senior Services Committee. Do we have a report? from
Yeah,
Senior
we reviewed, we discussed, there's been some interest in perhaps expanding the hours over at the senior center, perhaps some more evening programming than they already offer. So there's going to be a survey amongst the folks that use that. We opted not to implement a non-resident fee at this time for people using our programs like some other places around here have done. And we reviewed the quarterly case management and nutrition reports.
Excellent. And Library Board.
The only thing we did this month, we're still updating some other policies, is now that we have the new study pods in the building, we approved a policy for the use of those to prohibit eating.
Excellent. Fire Committee or Fire District.
We had the fire district meeting, and there were questions posed that we will be discussing further at this meeting pertaining to where the village stands with what has been developing at the fire district. So stay tuned and we'll discuss it.
All right. Utilities Commission.
Want me to take that one?
Sure.
I can do that. We talked about electrical inspections, approved contract to have that done. Went through financials as usual. Got an update on the new well 6 and passed the parental leave policy.
Excellent. Sustainable Waunakee Ad-Hoc Committee met and we had a presentation from Greenbox, who does composting. It was very informative. We had tons of questions. I think he was there for 45 minutes answering our questions, which was great. We had a discussion about promoting Earth Day, Earth Week events, as we are not scheduling any specific events within the village to celebrate that week. We were going to lift up what is being done across the county and in our adjacent communities. Parks and Rec.
We went out at Village Park at the pillars at the main entrance there. Obviously, they're deteriorating. They're also not allowed by the Department of Transportation. So Rotary, as their 50-year project, wants to put an arch in there. They're going to reuse the old cornerstones and that. And you'll hear more about that your next meeting with the slideshow and whatnot. We also will be later on discussing a decorative lighting policy for the lights on the back of the Village Center, and we approved an amplified music permit.
Excellent. Public Works.
Public Works met in March, and the contracts have been signed and executed for Manchester Crossing and the cul-de-sacs and Cumberland Court. It's also we're also working on the path along 113, and the sidewalk contract has been executed.
Excellent. Do we have any other committees, boards, or commissions? All right. Seeing none, any other announcements?
I'll just throw out that June 5th will be our shred event.
Excellent.
More details to come.
All right.
And I have one announcement just regarding the board and the newly elected seats. Those will take place due to the way that the third Tuesday in April falls, with the Tuesday having been the first with our election. The first date for the new board will be April 21st. So that's the next meeting, will be the newly elected board.
Okay, all right. One thing, we are looking at committee appointments. So if you're watching this at home and you're interested in serving on a committee, now would be a great time to put in an application. We are always excited to have new interest and new membership on committees, and it is a great way to get to know the community and get involved in what we do. So with that, we are on to business items. Number one.
One note, Kristen, Robert, you
Robert,
just
I'm
missed
sorry.
an update that this is your last board meeting. The way the Tuesdays fell, oftentimes you'll serve through the month, but this month doesn't work that way. So you're free to go after. You and Tricia are free to go.
But
Imagine the things you'll do on, imagine, just imagine.
with that, and I'll admit I'm a little bit taken off. I'm on my back foot here because I thought that everyone was going to be here on the 21st. So with that, my announcement that I want to make is I want to thank you, Tricia, and I want to thank you, Robert, for your service to the village. Both of you have been outstanding board members. A lot has been accomplished over the last 2 years, thanks to your leadership and your faithfulness as stewards of this community we call Waunakee. So thank you very much for what you've done for the community. All right. So with that, we'll move on to business item number 1, discuss and take action on resolution terminating tax increment district number 4.
Yeah, so I'll take that. So just about a month ago is when you, the board approved the resolution to extend TID number 4 for 1 month, so that we could capture that increment for the affordable housing extension and get that to the Housing Betterment Fund. So now we are required to close TID 4 by April 15th. And so this is really just a formality, the final resolution dissolving the TIF district.
All right. So do we have any discussion or questions on this item? No?
No, I'd like to move to approve tax incremental district termination resolution, Village of Waunakee tax incremental district number 4.
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. TID number 4 will now be closed. Number 2, discuss and take action on operational agreement for bilingual community resource specialist. And if you are following along on your agenda, that is, I believe, page 34.
And your packet includes a brief memo and then a relatively short and simple agreement related to our partnership we've established with Waunakee Neighborhood Connection. As the board approved in your 2025 budget, we agreed to fund 40% or 2 days a week of a full-time position that WNC has hired. That person's on board and doing their work. They're typically working with the village on Tuesdays and Thursdays. But we did put together this agreement that lays out some expectations and some legalese to guide this agreement between WNC and the village. It was reviewed by Village Attorney Brian Kleinmeyer and staff, and he are comfortable with its approval.
All right. Do we have any questions on this, Sam?
It was also, by the way, approved by WNC and their board in this form.
Nothing, Sam? No. Tricia? No. Nyla? No. Aaron? Joe? Robert?
Nope.
All right.
I'll move to approve the operational agreement for bilingual community resource specialist between Waunakee Neighborhood Connection and the Village of Waunakee.
Oh. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item carries. Next item is number 3, on page 37 of your agenda packet. Discuss and take action on a developer agreement for a development grant request in tax increment district 8. And I believe this is to you, Lauren.
Yep. So we received an application for TIF assistance from the owners of 101 East Main Street in Waunakee, the former Enders Plaza building. It's within the boundaries of TID 8, which is designated as a rehabilitation and conservation district. Part of the project list or project plan does list cash grants or development incentives as an eligible project cost. And the application is for some repairs that have been done to the building and need to be done to the building. Typically, we would do projects as future projects and pay them out as a pay-go instead of a development grant. But this one, the application is for some roofing and masonry that had become a hazard to neighboring properties. And so the work has already been done. It would be outside of the normal process that village board would do. But then there are also an equivalent amount of future costs for projects also related to deferred maintenance and upkeep on the building to make sure that one of our oldest downtown buildings remains viable for use for a long time.
Do you want to note to Lauren that we have our Ellers rep
Yes.
available?
So let me note them. We have Shane Redling from Ellers, who's available online if you have any questions related to the TIF or the Ellers analysis of it. We also have Jen Sluka, who's the owner of 101 East Main Street here to answer any questions or give a presentation if you'd like her to.
And Jen, would you like to speak? You don't have to if you don't want to. Yeah. Well, go ahead. Yeah. I know. I want to give you the opportunity in case you did. And make sure the mic is on green.
Is the button
If it's green, yeah. There we go.
Push the button.
No, it's great.
Perfect.
Normally I'm loud enough and I have a command voice where I don't ever need a microphone, so this is bizarre. I think I had the honor and privilege to speak to every single one of you, and I just want to thank you guys all for your time and willingness to like sit down and discuss the projects that have happened over the last several months, and this was not conventional, and I just want to also thank like Lauren and Todd of these guys have I'm not a person who typically gets emotional. As a therapist, I like to believe that I'm pretty emotionally competent. And since buying this building, I have had a lot of big emotions, and Lauren has really gotten me through it. And I think initially, I just want to note, because some individuals have reached back out of like, hey, initially the TIF request was for this, and now we see that there's an increase. Going through the process with Ellers, I think, is an incredible process for TIF money. Making the request, I didn't know what to make a request for. And I will be honest, my mom said from the time that I was 2, I put my hands on my hips and said, I do it myself. So I'm not one to typically ask for help. So this was a really, really hard process for me and my husband to be able to, or willing to go through this process. But there was just a lot of things that came up after buying this building. And we bought this building and we named it Avex Property because our kids' names are Avery and Alex. And this is something that we want to be rooted in this community and in this village. And owning the building, it is a historical part of Waunakee, and we don't take that lightly. And I want to make it kind of the cornerstone of the street that it's on. So I guess, I don't know if there's any additional questions. I've had the honor of kind of explaining what has happened, what needs to happen, and all the growth process that's been a part of it. But Ellers taught me, and, you know, he dissects and he does an amazing job. And I also had an honor of Shane was incredible throughout the process. And so I feel like we created a number that not only helps us recover a little bit and get us through the projects that I've already done, but also make sure that I hopefully don't ever have to come back and ask for help again, because I don't want to.
All right. Thank you, John.
Thank you,
Jen.
guys.
Let's open it up for questions and see if any of our board members have questions. Aaron.
I guess no specific questions right now, but I think that I'm glad that our staff and consultants could be helpful. And I think this is a unique request and it's a unique building. And we talk a lot about in our community and the historic nature of it. And so I think it's great to see an investment in a building like that. And I'm glad that we could be a good partner so far in the process.
Thank you.
Joe, do you have any questions?
Not at this moment.
Robert?
Yeah, so 2 comments. One, which is, since I'm outgoing, I can say this now. Appreciated that you invited us all to go and look at it. I wish more people that applied for tax assistance in this village would actually go through the process of explaining their project instead of just showing up one day and asking for money without any explanation. I think it's an important downtown historic building. I think it's unfortunate that the previous owner treated it the way that they did, and I'm glad that a new owner came in and rescued it and made sure that it wasn't having masonry fall in the streets onto people. That's very important. I will say that as a trustee, a little frustrated that you were told by staff that some of us would not approve your thing. I know that I believe the chair of this board said that I would probably not approve it. I actually like it. It's a woman-owned business. It's a veteran-owned business. I will be proud to vote yes on this tonight. Thanks.
Thank you, Robert.
All right, Nyla.
Just one question. Right now, it says that if the developer sells, transfers, or otherwise conveys the property or any portion of the property in any way or fashion within 5 years of the execution of the agreement, the developer shall pay to the village $150,000. Why was 5 years determined and not 10 years? Would 10 years make it so that you did not want to enter into the contract?
I don't know where the 5 years came up with. I didn't select that. I don't know if that was a,
5 years was recommended or mentioned as a possibility by one of the trustees as a clawback period. So that's what we put into the contract, but we would be open to discussing with the board and with the building owner whether another time period may be more appropriate.
So would 10 years make a big difference to you?
I'm not going anywhere. For any of you who have driven past the building, my business name is on the building and I am a workaholic. I'm going to own that. I should probably be in therapy for it. I'm not going anywhere. I have rooted into that building and I only plan to grow and build my business and the building. And I'm very invested in the community and making it better. So
Okay, thank you.
10 years is not going to get rid of me.
Go ahead, Tricia.
A couple of comments and then a question kind of piggybacking on that a little bit. I think Jen, I appreciate you and your husband taking this project on as not a developer or redeveloper or anything, like very scary to just, put your faith into something like this, where I think if it had been a developer that has done this before, they would have been here asking for TIF assistance before they even entered into the agreement to purchase it. So you just kind of found out the hard way, all the surprise costs that came up. And I also give credit to staff to helping to be creative and come to a solution, because this is exactly the type of project I think that all of us love, right? To see the investment going into the downtown. So with that said, I don't see an issue with the 5 years. My question was because if they're doing the improvements and keeping the building intact, at some point, if for some reason need to sell, even if it's just for reinvestment of money or bringing in a partner or whatever, I don't want that to come back and haunt you. But I didn't know, on that time frame, you have until 2034 to put the improvements in. So I guess that's kind of my questions were where those dates came up with and if they make sense for the intent of what this request was for. So I don't know, Lauren, that's a question to you or more of just a statement, and I don't know if there's even an answer needed, but.
It might also be a question for the village attorney, but I believe 2034 would give them a roughly 10-year time frame to get the improvements done in, and roughly coincides with possibly with the closure of the district. I'll need.
As I'm sitting here right now, I think that 2034 is probably, I think it's probably the closure of the district.
Okay.
Which would then be the last year that you'd be able to have that identified.
Okay. That makes sense.
Sam.
I have absolutely no objections to your request. I have great respect for your transparency throughout this entire process. You've made it very clear that you've needed this, things that at this table I've asked other applicants to do that has not been done. You've done 100%. So you can count on my support.
Thank you, Sam.
And thank you for coming forward to save the building, for the work that you've done on it, for the moments that, a lot of other people would have thrown in the towel.
Yeah.
And said, this is expensive, this is uncertain, this is a lot of work and energy that is, not something that you do for a living. So thank you very much for that. And when we met earlier this year about it, I did talk about the fact that we as a board sometimes are yes on a TIF or a TID district, sometimes no. You took the time to meet with everybody, to address concerns, to put together what I think is a great proposal. So really thank you for all of the time that you put into that. Go ahead, Joe has a question. Yeah.
Yeah, and I think it's probably something more for Brian. I'm curious about the 2034 date again. Is there a chance that we could decide to close this TID early, and would this date cause any conflicts in doing so?
So I'm trying to look this up right now. I think the TID closes later than 2034.
does.
I think where this is coming from is this was just a discussion. I think where 2034 comes from is as part of, I think, the discussions that the applicant had with Ellers, dove deeper into the other improvements that are likely to be needed at the property beyond what has been done already. And it was a result of those conversations that we identified the 2034 date.
Okay.
Shane from Ellers has been brought in as a participant in our meeting. I just want to check quick, Shane, is there additional context that you want to add to this point?
No, thank you. I don't have any more context on the 2034, except for when we do the analysis, we look at a 10-year time horizon, and that may be where it came from. But I wasn't part of the development agreement discussion.
The mandatory closure date is 2046.
Perfect. Thank you.
Any other questions or comments?
Motion to approve the developer agreement for a development grant request in Tax Increment District 8 with an addition to true up the timing in section 7 of the developer agreement, repayment by the developer, 7A moving from 5 years to 10 years to match 7B in the 10-year horizon.
I'll second it.
Okay. Before we take a vote, there is a typo on page
57 of the packet, but 12. It just says 2015 instead of 2025.
So for the other agreement, other than that, I think we're good. All right, any discussion on the motion? No, seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, motion carries. Thank you very much. And so glad that that building's gonna remain in good shape downtown, or get into good shape.
Right here on the side,
We were told much about the building.
2025.
No investor was ever going to buy that building because of the fact that there's no, and we knew like, we're not going to make anything off this building until someday when it sells, but like we plan to stay in it for a very, very long time. And so this truly is a heart and soul project for us for Waunakee. So just like, thank you guys so much for our support and helping us keep this alive.
Excellent.
Appreciate it. And I probably won't stay much longer because I'm gonna go in my car.
Oh, no. Thank you.
Last comment.
Yes, yeah.
I just wanted to say, when I came to talk with you, first of all, I want to say that I'm not a huge supporter of TIF funding of any kind. And I do appreciate the fact that I asked you some very personal, difficult questions and you answered them. And I so much appreciate that.
Thank you for asking those questions. You guys, I felt like you guys invested as much in my story as you were investing in Waunakee, and it makes me feel like a part of Waunakee, and that's why we moved here. So
Excellent.
I appreciate that, guys.
All right, thank you so much. All right, next up, item number 4, discuss and take action on adjustment of village engineer position on wage scale. And let's see, I believe, is this you, Jared?
Yep, so that'll be me. I'm just getting situated here. All right, we'll keep it nice and short and simple here. So a little bit ago, a couple months ago, Bill asked me to do a pay and comp comparison study for our village engineer position to make sure we were in line with where we needed to be. Currently, our engineer position is on grade S7 of our wage scale, S here denoting salaried exempt. So he's on the salary page and grade 7 of that scale. We did some research. It took a little bit of time because it turns out there aren't a whole bunch of municipal engineers in the state of Wisconsin who work for who are public employees. Most of them work for private firms. And so then we had to whittle it down to the most comparable communities. So there are actually 2 documents that are included with your agenda packet. The first one, that just looks like a regular Excel spreadsheet. That's the one that I put together with the communities that I found the data for that we felt were most comparable. And then the other data set is a little broader. That's from the Dane County Cities Villages Association. They included data from several municipalities throughout the state, of varying degrees of comparability to us, I would say, but nonetheless, our current range in S7 has a minimum range or a minimum of 85,280 with a max of 109, 179.20. Looking at our comparable communities, the median would be a low of 94,640 up to 125,000. And so with that in mind, when we look at our salary scale, that most closely aligns with grade S10. And so we are recommending that we move the engineer position to that so that we are in line with our competition for engineer position. And then so we'd also recommend moving the current engineer from his current step in S7 to year 1 of step 7 on S10. So I know that's a lot of like year 1 of step 7 on S10 grade, whatever. Happy to clarify more if you need.
All right. Thank you. And with that, let's take questions. Robert, do you have any questions?
Are we looking to solve a problem here? Are we at risk of losing our village engineer? Is that what this?
Yeah, I mean, we're not at risk of losing at this point in time, but it's just more to bring them in line with the market. Because there obviously are opportunities out there and not, although I don't know of any people approached them, but there is that chance.
Okay. So,
Nyla,
No questions.
Joe?
The only question I would have, I guess, would be, this seems like a significant jump all at once. Is it something that we'd want to face? Or is that more work than it's worth?
Well, that's definitely a policy decision for the board to make. I mean, my recommendation from an HR standpoint would not to be, if we know that we want to end up in S10, it doesn't pay to take our time to get there. I do know that of a few communities who have been trying to recruit for engineers lately, they have had quite a bit of difficulty with that. So although to Bill's point, we're not necessarily concerned about resolving an issue now, I would hate for something to happen and then we're not competitive right away.
Yeah.
I'd add that I think moving the range due to market conditions seems like more of a matter of fact circumstance as opposed to something that, like, if we were looking to move the employee's pay by 20 grand, maybe that from a budgetary perspective is something that would be more easily made incrementally, so we could kind of ease it into a couple budget cycles. In this case, it's more of a matter of fact issue.
Sure.
If that makes
Agreed.
sense.
Tricia?
I guess, so I had a different question, but Joe's comment made me think of some, I'm assuming because our engineer is not new, that they're somewhere in that middle. They're not like going backwards at all. I'm going to that. I think the recommendation is to go to year 1, or is that for new employees? So we're not moving our existing employees. This is just for if there were to be replaced. I'm trying to think how that fits in there.
Are you maybe talking about the fact that right now he's at the very end?
I don't
Of
know.
his
Like, I
range?
have no idea where he's
Well,
at in there. That's-
currently, in his current range, he is at the last step as you move left to right.
Oh, is it in there? Okay.
In other words, no capability by
So this
by
is
years
just the
of
range.
service. So what this actually does, it right sizes
Perfect.
the grade placement, kind of positions him with a slight increase in rate, but
Okay.
he then will experience the benefit of additional years of service, qualifying him
Perfect.
for longevity
I missed that.
enhancements.
Yeah.
So we think that benefits him in that position as well.
For new recruits, to say if that position were to have to be filled, or we created another position that has to be filled, how many years of experience is required in the job description, Bill?
No, I don't
And off the top of your head, like, it's not, what I'm trying to say is I think for this level of a position, you want experienced individuals, right?
I'm guessing it's
Yeah.
around 5
5
years.
years.
So this
Yeah, that,
doesn't
I would
seem
think 5 years.
Out
as
of
well.
line for, a good amount of experience. Okay, thank you.
Erin?
Yeah, I'm glad that we can do an interim market update and make sure that we're taking care of retaining staff. I remember when we had a bit of shifting and reorganization in this department like 4 or 5 years ago.
Mhm.
The board at the time, we made the choice to keep the engineer position in-house. So we're not reliant on consultants or our competitors in this situation and at the mercy of needing a lot of technical support for things that like the PE was required. So I just think it's good that we are able to stay on top of the market with that because yeah, we have a lot of competitors besides the other municipalities for this skill set in the area.
Thank you, Erin. Sam?
Nope, no questions. This makes perfect sense. There's an unusually high number of these positions available on the market right now. Most of the comps that you see are people that they were either just hired or they are actively hiring for that position now. So it makes complete sense to do this at this time.
All right. I agree with everyone. So I'll make a move to approve the proposed adjustments, moving the village engineer position from grade S7 of the wage scale to grade S10, as well as moving the current village engineer to year 1 of step 7 on grade S10, effective April 20th, 2025.
Second.
All right, any discussion on the motion? Seeing none, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
All right, next up on the agenda is item number 5, page 74. Discuss and take action on Waunakee Area Fire Department intergovernmental agreement, including but not limited to discussion and action on legal requirements related to creation and operation of a statutory fire commission.
I don't know if you guys want me to go first or if Nyla or Robert wants, so let me kind of summarize my understanding what's happened here. And I should stay from the front end. The things that I've read recently or heard recently, in my opinion, don't change anything that the village has done or what the village has discussed or what it's been talking about doing. My understanding is that at the last fire district board meeting, there was a discussion between the board and an attorney that's been retained, and I think it's about time that the fire district retained an attorney. My understanding is the attorney for the fire district issued a memorandum that in part essentially acknowledged that there are issues with the documents related to the district, whether that be the bylaws of the firefighters or what I'm going to call an intergovernmental agreement between the municipalities. But then as part of that concluded that in fact, fire service in the village of Waunakee and the other towns is being provided via a statutory fire company. And because of that, then a fire commission is not required. And I guess I would just say, reasonable minds can disagree. I believe part of this is the attorney for the fire district represents the fire district. I represent the village of Waunakee. When I look at the documents and when I look at the statutes, I would agree that there's definitely not the clarity that you want. And I think the memo that was prepared by the fire district attorney and the memo that was prepared by McMahon all acknowledge that changes need to be made. I come out at a different end. I believe these are services that are being provided in the village based on intergovernmental agreement between municipalities, which then requires a fire commission. The attorney for the fire district has come to a different conclusion, saying you don't need a fire commission because the services are by a joint fire department. I'm just going to say, I disagree with that. I think it's more likely that it's a joint fire department and we need a fire commission. I would also note that no matter whatever you conclude on that, that doesn't resolve the issues that I've heard discussed at the board level regarding, this doesn't get into the financial components of the fact that the village is spending, I think, 70% or that nature on the services compared to the other communities. And the other thing that I've heard board members talk about before is control. In other words, if you're going to spend this amount of money, you want to have more control. Now, how you get there, I know McMahon has identified some different solutions. One is to create a village fire department. That absolutely is where you end up with the most control. It's a department then of the village. if this is if the service is being provided by a joint fire company or a fire company organized under the statute such that you don't need a fire commission, that doesn't solve either of those other problems for the village. And in particular, that means, as I understand some of the memos, you in fact would have less control over the fire services as opposed to more control. And so I'm certainly willing to try to answer any questions, but that's where I'm at. And again, that's why my opinion is I don't think that any of this changes the action that the village board has taken over the last few months or the resolution that was approved, I think, in February.
Thank you, Brian. So with that, Nyla.
I will say that what the fire district lawyer brought forth may add more twists and turns in the total picture of an already complicated subject. But we do need, I think the village of Waunakee needs to continue on the road that we've started going down. And that's my opinion.
All right, thank you, Nyla. Robert.
Brian covered it. I agree with the village's current position. I think that the attorney for the fire district is acting in the interest of the fire district. That should be expected, so I don't begrudge him for coming to a different conclusion. The takeaway, though, from his memo that I would still point out is that regardless of how you choose to view it, it's still not in compliance with anything at this point. So whether or not the membership forms into a company, they're not one today. And whether or not the village requires a commission, it doesn't exist today. So it was in an acknowledgement in the memo. The other part of it, and speaking frankly, is that the other municipalities are doing is exactly what was expected. They're still kind of throwing a bit of a temper tantrum over the fact that the village is withdrawing in order to maintain control over a very expensive department that provides services to the village. And the village has every right to expect that for as much as it's paying into it, that it has control. I think that one of the municipalities is coming around a little bit to at least say that the forward is to negotiate, but I'll be honest, the representative from Springfield still, can't help but cuss us out sometimes when we're in meetings still with that. So they're still not to that point. Obviously, this is somebody else's problem from my perspective because I'm off the board after tonight, but I think that the village still needs to move forward, do right by the firefighters, make sure that they're taken care of, do right by the building and make sure the improvement is done and continue to move forward. And honestly, Springfield can come around someday with their 1% to however much they pay in there, and they can cut a deal with the village to get services out from same with Vienna, and they're less than 1%. I mean, the time is to be adults and just move on with this because every day that the firefighters don't know the future of what's going on is a day of issues for them with their membership. And we still have some firefighters that unfortunately keep spreading misinformation out into the community about this. And the best way to stop that is to show that we're serious about it and to give them something solid that they can move forward with.
Thank you, Robert.
Kristen, I had a quick follow-up for Robert and Nyla, if I could.
Mhm.
I know when Brian and I had a conversation with the fire district's fire board's attorney, he made comments to us about willing, if desired by the fire board, to serve in kind of a mediator role between the communities should the communities wish to open up and proceed with discussions about the IGA and possibly finding some common ground or renegotiating that. Did he express that willingness to the fire board as well? And is that to be expected?
Yeah, Attorney Smith still made it very clear that the village has initiated the withdrawal process. So he thinks that in his summation as their representative, that that's still in their best interest to just negotiate with the village and address the greater issues. He views this commission, the commission company issue as really secondary to the fact that that does not resolve the overriding issue, which is that the village desires to have more fate or more control over its fate for how much it pays into it.
I mean, I would hope for that as a positive step in that the challenge has been the intergovernmental relationship piece, and that's where a third party can really be useful. Anyway, I will just say if there's steps that the village, Brian, other members of the village team can take to support those efforts, we're ready to be of assistance.
Thank you. Natalie, did you have a comment on that? Okay. All right, so let's open it up for questions, both for Attorney Kleinmeyer, for Todd, and for Nyla and Robert, if you don't mind, since you've got the history and the experience of working with us. Tricia, do you have any questions or comments?
No. No, not at this time. I
Joe?
think that it's been covered, sorry.
Okay, oh, no, it's my bad, my bad. Joe?
Not so much a question or anything, but I guess the biggest concern I would have is we've gotten to this point and we're losing a significant part of how we've gotten to this point. So I just want to make sure that we continue on with somebody who has the background knowledge.
Absolutely.
That's all.
Mhm. And Nyla, you'll be continuing.
Yeah.
Correct, correct.
Excellent.
Sam?
No, I pretty much agree with what everybody else just stated. We need to keep going down this road.
Aaron?
Yeah, it's not clear to me that the fire company, like, I understand why their attorney proposed that. It's, yeah, we're not in compliance for that either. So it's not necessarily a quicker resolution to the situation. I'm not sure it addresses all of the dynamics of that we want to maintain a relationship with the people we have the communities that we have an intergovernmental agreement with. I guess back to Nyla and Robert and anyone that is there a direction some of the municipalities want to go? I guess on behalf of the fire board.
I think Westport is willing to negotiate. I think
Okay.
Springfield is not willing to negotiate, and Vienna has offered to just say, just buy us out at one point, but that's not what we don't need to buy
Okay.
them out. That's not how the agreement's set up.
I guess with the concept of it, that the fire company needs to be housed by a municipality. I wasn't sure if one of them was very excited about that possibility that we should keep an eye on.
Yeah,
Technically, the fire company is supposed to be under the village of Waunakee, not the fire district, which complicates things further.
yeah, we didn't talk about it. So if they're a company, companies are only statutorily allowed to exist under the authority of a village or city. And so as far as the towns are concerned, if they move forward with the company, the village has to approve, this is gonna get complicated, but there are trustees appointed to the fire company, not this type of trustee, but
Correct.
that type of trustee.
Yeah.
And then those trustees have to be approved by this body. So Springfield, Vienna, and currently Town of Westport would be blocked out from that process as well. And those trustees would then select chief officers and things like that.
Okay, I guess I wasn't quite sure. There was this inkling of idea with Westport wanting to be a village, if that was part of this,
I think,
that they wanted to host.
right, I think that is another scenario that complicates things even more. And then can I make one comment?
Oh, absolutely, yes.
I have said it from the day I proposed doing the study quite some time ago, that one of the priorities to knowing where we're going is to be able to provide what the firefighters need and what the fire department needs. And in order to do that, that's why I wanted to have the study. And we cannot have a fire department at this time in Waunakee without our firefighters. I am very dedicated to keeping volunteer firefighters in Waunakee as long as we can. It only makes sense to do so. And I have not ever heard any board members say otherwise. And I want to stress that. And that's it.
Thank you, Nyla. Other questions, Aaron?
Just reiterating what Nell said, I think our gratitude, it's frustrating a little bit that there's this concept that we want to get rid of the volunteer firefighters. Like, I am so in awe. They're volunteering their time, their safety so much. And so I think in this, I just am really keeping that in the front of my mind. And I don't want us to lose the entire department. And I hope we can do the best we can to support going forward, growing needs. So
Sam?
I'll just agree again with what everybody just stated. Really, the whole idea that continuing that want to push the volunteers out, which most certainly is not true, is unfortunately continuing to be pushed by the town of Springfield, but that's not happening.
We have, over the last year and a half, 2 years, as a board, discussed and moved in unison on this. When we have had questions about what we are able to do or what is in the best interest of the village. The 7 of us have, sat around a table in open session or in closed session with the guidance of both, our members on the fire committee and our attorney and the folks that we've talked to in the community to make these moves, these actions as a group and as a unified group. Above all, we are considered with 2 things: the safety of the village, first of all, and the safety and experience of our volunteer firefighters. So I want to thank you, Robert, for all of the work that you've done on this, and Nyla for all of the work you've done on this. We are going to continue moving forward. Certainly, we'll be talking a lot with Westport, Springfield, and Vienna about how we can best resolve this so that all communities are covered, so that we are still maintaining our obligations to our neighbors, and that we are doing things that are in the best interest of the village and the firefighters. So thank you all for that. We don't have any particular action on this, but are there other questions or things that we would like to address going forward?
I just want to leave a message for whoever takes over my space. Please start scheduling meetings with representatives from the volunteer and keeping them involved in the process and fulfilling our end of the resolution that we passed.
Absolutely. Absolutely. All right. With that, any further questions or comments? No. All right. Thank you. Thank you all. Thank you guys for showing up tonight. Yeah. And as I promised, when I came to the membership meeting, we'll continue to be here, be listening, be paying attention to what's going on and learning what we need to do to support you. All right. So thank you. All right. Next item on the agenda then. Item number 6, discuss and take action on proposed second amendment to the development agreement for the brewery expansion project, TID 9, and warehouse expansion project of TID 9 related to Occupy Brewing and Facilities.
You can stay there right now, Sam.
All right.
Yep.
Okay.
So what I would like to do, if it's okay with the board, is talk about this item. The next item, I'm not sure if you will need to go into closed session on that. I can give you an update, and then maybe after we talk about both in open session, then you can make a determination as to whether or not you want to go into closed session on either of them. If that makes sense. Okay. So as it relates to item number 6 on the Occupy agreements, as everyone knows, we've had multiple meetings related to this issue. It all comes down to the fact that we have 2 existing TIF agreements related to Occupy expansion projects. Both expansion projects have been completed. Occupy, though, as an entity, was acquired by Asahi. And so we've had meetings at the board level, and we've had meetings with Asahi trying to resolve some issues related to language in the existing TIF agreements and the impact of Asahi's acquisition of the property. Right now, I think we have an agreement at a staff level that we feel comfortable with one item that I would like to discuss with you in closed session. You will have the ability to obviously ask other questions if you want to. But if we do reach a resolution with Asahi / which owns Occupy now at this point, essentially what the agreement would hold would be one final incremental payment of $280,000 to Occupy, but then any future payments would need to be made. That's, I would say, the big term and condition. But there is one in particular that I need to talk to you in closed session about, and then you would also have the ability to ask questions about other terms and conditions. And so I don't know if you want to, I'm certainly willing to try to answer any questions you might have, but at this point, I think I've said pretty much everything I was hoping to say in open session.
Right. Any questions for open session on this? If not, then could we go on to item number 7?
Yeah, if you're okay with that. So we obviously had a number of meetings in a row where the Westport notice of intent to incorporate and the petition was on. It's been quite some time that it's been on. And the reason for that is procedural in nature. And one of the reasons why it may make sense, I think at a staff level, we wanted to put it on the agenda tonight as an update. We might want to wait until a further meeting to have more discussion. I say that because there is a meeting scheduled among the attorneys for Westport, Waunakee, DeForest, Madison, and Middleton on Wednesday, April 16th. And what we're meeting about at this point is, again, this is procedural in nature. You had a petition to incorporate that was signed by the requisite number of residents in Westport. And we had the procedural hearing at the circuit court level. And so the next step in the process is for Westport to take their petition to the State Incorporation Review Board, which is a part of the Department of Administration. What we're trying to work through now is obviously we have a petition that's been signed, but Westport, if you were to look at their agendas, has had multiple meetings where they've had discussions with DeForest and Waunakee and Madison and Middleton about potential boundary agreements. And so the procedural issue is, how do you merge essentially the incorporation petition with the boundary agreements? And again, at this point, it's not a substantive discussion, it's a procedural discussion. We've had meetings among, there's been multiple meetings among the attorneys, but this is going to be the first one where actually all five going to get together. And ultimately, I think we're going to try to come up with some solution where then everyone can go back to their respective boards and say, hey, this is what's being contemplated. I mean, right now, what's being contemplated is utilizing a process under 660307 of the Wisconsin statutes regarding cooperative plans. But before that process can start, each municipality is going to have to adopt a resolution saying that it wants to move in that direction. And it is a positive direction to move in. But I think we need to have a staff/attorney level discussion before we can come back and talk to the respective boards. And so again, I'm certainly willing to try to answer more questions, but I don't necessarily think it's necessary to go into closed session on this unless you really want to, because that's really what it's been procedural in nature and not substantive to this point.
All right. Do we have any questions on item number 7 on the incorporation for Westport? Nyla? No? Tricia? Sam? Aaron? Joe? Robert?
Just, I hope that they move forward and that they get their petition signed so that we can get rid of the ETZ. As a future non-government person, I want to see that thing gone.
So then, I mean, it sounds to me like everyone's satisfied. We'll have a future discussion on that, but I would like the board to consider convening into closed session back on item number 6, so we can at least, you can ask me any questions you want about the terms and conditions, but there's one that I would like to discuss with you.
Okay. All right. Then I will read the statement. The village.
And I'll be recusing, just to clarify.
You're recusing?
Yep.
Okay. All right. The village board may convene in closed session as authorized by Wisconsin statute 19.5. 1E for the purpose of deliberating or negotiating the purchasing of public properties, the investing of public funds, or conducting other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session. The village board may reconvene in open session and discuss and take action on the subject matter discussed in closed session. So with that, do we have a motion to go into closed session?
I'll move.
A second.
All right, roll call vote, I believe.
Nyla Fry,
Yes.
Robert McPherson,
Yes.
Joe Zisselsberger,
Yes.
Kristen Runge,
Yes.
Tricia Brown,
Yes.
Sam Kaufman.
No, he's not.
Recused.
I'm-
Yeah.
Yes.
And Aaron.
And Aaron. I don't know why.
And then a note,
Good. You're good.
Sorry.
a note for those that are watching, I don't do expect open session.
I doubt it. I wouldn't totally foreclose that possibility, but I think it's unlikely.
Okay, but either way, we won't expect to restart the recording, but the official minutes of the meeting will identify any actions taken after closed session reconvenes.
All right, thank you. With
Back
that,
open.
we will move into closed session at 6:55 PM as soon as the room clears.